Conversations in Artificial Intelligence, the data-driven product management series. Today I want to give you unusual tips for successful data-driven product managers. So if you have watched the other two episodes of this mini-series that you can find here or there, or you can just search on the YouTube channel, you have seen that we first talked about what is a data-driven product manager, what makes he or she successful, and we gave you a few tips. We also gave you some tips on how to become a data-driven product manager, and there is another video for that, take a look. And today we're gonna go into unusual tips. So you see, the holy grail of data-driven product management is the so-called A/B testing. Now, if you don't know what an A/B testing is, I am sorry, you will have to look for some literature. This is a very basic thing, but at high level it's very simple. It is when you want to decide between, let's say, one website or one feature on a website and another one, what you do is you split the traffic on this website into equal portions, or it can be not necessarily equal, and then you see how users behave when they see one type of website and when they see the other type of website, and then based on that make a decision. So the first tip I want to give is that when you consider about doing an A/B testing, think of how long you have to run it for. This is a very important question, for how long you're going to run it. And when you answer to this question, consider that this question really differs depending on what type of data you're collecting, what type of availability you have there in the data that you're collecting. So for example, if you're just testing, imagine on this, you're just testing a button on a website, okay? So that button probably in a number of situations will be utilized in a similar way by all the type of users that you are on the website. But suppose instead that you're testing how an algorithm is recommending a particular item on an e-commerce website. That is a little bit more complicated situation, because that item, there can be items that have a lot of traffic, so a lot of people watch them, and items that have very little traffic. So in order to gain sufficient statistics on items that have little traffic, you need longer time. But in general, what you need to do is you need to think that answer these questions depends on various parameters, including the type of questions you want to answer, like what type of precision you need in this experiment. And don't run these experiments too long if the type of precision you need is not high. If you want a directional answer, if you run these experiments forever, then you're gonna slow down your entire pipeline of releasing product features into productions. And that's particularly important where you work not in the startup, but when you work in a medium or large companies where features are intertwined and they're interdependent. Then that's complicated to move your product and your colleagues' products along. So it's pretty complex. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, not very common, is this concept of speeding up experimentation with things like so-called interleaving analysis. This is a type of A/B testing that is a little bit different than an A/B testing. So imagine that you want to choose which one is better between Coca-Cola and Pepsi, or which one is more consumed between Coca-Cola and Pepsi, okay? And what you do is, let's say that you have 1 million customers, you divide them into groups, and you give 500,000 of them, you give Coca-Cola every day for 10 days, and the other group you give Pepsi every day for 10 days. And then at the end, you measure how much Coca-Cola has been drunk from the first group and how much Pepsi has been drunk from the other group. Now, there are a number of reasons why this type of experiment could fail, and I won't go into the reasons. This is one way of doing the experiment. It takes quite a bit of time to do. It takes 10 days. The other way that you could do this experiment is you don't divide the people into different samples, but you rather give them every day either Coca-Cola or Pepsi in a way that is random, but is still equally distributed. So you don't check who are you giving the Coca-Cola or the Pepsi, but you give 50% of Coca-Cola, 50% of Pepsi. And then after 3 or 4 days, you measure how much Coca-Cola has been drunk and how much Pepsi is being drunk, and that gives you an answer. So what did this is shorten the time to do this experiment. And this is very important in situations where maybe you do not have to do just a simple A/B testing, but you have to test multiple options. And that's, for example, is something that happens quite a bit in the field of AI product management. And it happens because you might have multiple algorithms that you want to test, or you might have multiple tweaks of a main algorithms that you want to test. And therefore, in order to do that, if you have 10 tweaks, and you have to design A/B testers, it could take forever to experiment around that, and you don't want that to happen. Last tip I want to give is people talk always about A/B testing and so on and so forth, and it's so big topic in the field of product management, but also more generally, I would say in social science, it's very used. But is it always possible to do A/B testing? The answer is no, it's not possible. So in these circumstances, you can use a different type of approach. It's called counterfactual analysis, and was invented by Google, and because they have these kind of problems, and they have also tons of PhDs and scientists that work for them, and so you can afford to make these people working on a very specific problem and come up with innovations that is almost at the same level of what you would have in academia. Sometimes it's even more advanced in things that are more applied. So going back to this interfactual analysis, the idea here is that you don't really break, let's say, your traffic or what you're testing into groups, and then you give one thing and give the other one another thing, because you cannot really do it. So what you do is instead you try to run an experiment over a period of time in which at a certain point there is a change, and something changes. Now, when something changes at a certain point, you ever need to measure if that change has caused a change in a certain trend. Now everything becomes very complex here because you do not have a reference. So in order to create a reference line, what this method does is to find a different sample set, a sample set that is not necessarily of the same quantity that you're trying to test, but is somewhat correlated, and utilize the history of the sample set as a reference to assess whether or not there's been a change in the sample set that you're really interested to measure. This topic is definitely complex, and there are lots of publications. I can talk about it if you have questions and you have a comment about this, and you ask me about what is this and what is that, then maybe I can go further in this topic. And for the time being, what I can tell you is that measurements and establishing a framework for measurement is crucial in artificial intelligence products and process innovations. This is the reason why an entire chapter of my course that you find on Inodemia is dedicated to this very topic, and you find this type of things and this type of information there in my course. So if you're interested, take a look at inodemia.com. And by the way, if you like this style of tips for product management, then take a look at our 101 tips for effective product managers. Thank you, and I'll see you the next time.